Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call to order the License Variance Board meeting for March 11th, 2020. It's 10 a.m. My name is Roy Akery. I'm the fire chief here in the city of Smyrna. To my left is Frank Martin, the director of public works. To his left is Mary Moore, our library director. In front of Frank is Heather Pecan-Corn, our city clerk, who is here for the official meeting minutes. We've got 6 items on the agenda today. Item 3A, which is a public hearing application for change of agent for AVAMC Company, LLC, DBA on the range. It's my understanding from staff that this item will be tabled indefinitely because we don't know what date is coming up. Is that correct? Okay, this is a public hearing. If there's anybody here that has anything to say about item 3A, I'd ask that you step forward now. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to table.
I'll make a motion to table indefinitely. License 2020-06, public hearing application for change of agent for HVAMAC Company, LAC DBA on the range for the privilege license for beer and wine and liquor retail pouring at 2500 South Cobb Drive.
Second.
Got a motion to table indefinitely. It's properly seconded. Motion passes unanimously. Item 3B is -07, and I'm also understanding from Ms. Crow that this item 3A is requested to be tabled until March the 25th, which is the next License Variance Board meeting. Is that correct? This is a public hearing. If there's anybody here that would like to speak on behalf of item 3B, I'd ask that you step forward at this time. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to table.
(20-07) public hearing, privilege license request, LIC 2020-07, beer, wine, and liquor pouring, 2590 Spring Road Southeast, B&G Trade LLC DBA, Barani and Grill with Mikhail Honore as agent, tabled to March 25th.
I second.
Got a motion to table to the 25th. It's been properly seconded. If there's no further discussion, we'll call for the vote. Motion passes unanimously. Hearing variance request V20-019 to allow 5-foot fence in front yard on a corner lot, land lot 451, located at 930 Eleanor Way. Brian and Cindy Thompson are the applicants. Are the applicants present? If I could ask you to step up to the podium, please. And if you could, for the record, just state your name. Good morning. How are y'all? So you guys are going to put a wood fence, and the city ordinance says in your front yard it can only be 4 foot, and this is a variance to request. So could you just tell us a little bit about the fence and the need for it, and that type of stuff?
We're putting up a 5-foot fence because we're on a corner lot. We have a lot of issues there. We bought the house 35 years ago, and we just have more and more problems with stealing and breaking in the house, breaking in our building.
Okay.
So we want to get something a little bit bigger, and it's just going to be a split rail fence with the wire backing behind it.
It's the welded wire backing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. You have any questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, if you guys could just have a seat. We might call you back up in a second, but I will call up from Ms. Crow. I'm sorry. Did you have something?
All right, good morning. Caitlin Crow, Community Development Planner 1. So this variance is V20-019 to allow a 5-foot fence in the front yard on a corner lot. The subject property is 0.3 acres, located at the intersection of Eleanor Way and Medland Street. The applicant is proposing to construct a 5-foot wooden split rail fence with welded wire in their front yard, which is unfortunately not allowed with Section 503-A, which does control the location and height of fences. Due to the property having 2 road frontages, both sides are considered a front yard. Strict application of this ordinance would require a fence only of 4 feet height and would need to be set back at least 35 feet if they wanted to go above that, which this does limit the usable front yard. So this property has been properly posted with no site distance issues with the city engineer, as long as they adhere to section 513, which states that no fence shall be permitted within 20 feet of the intersection of right-of-way lines of streets. This is again also in the stipulations and is also shown on the revised site plan. So after reviewing the variance application, staff does support the request and recommends approval to allow a 5-foot fence in the front yard with the following 2 conditions. The first one being approval of the requested variance shall be conditioned upon the development of the property and substantial compliance with the site plan and pictures of the fence style submitted with the variance application. And number 2, the fence shall be placed 25 feet from the center lines of both Eleanor Way and Medlin Street. And with that, I can answer any questions.
So with the 25-foot thing on the corner, I mean, just from a lay perspective, is that going to mean that, so they have two roads, you know, they have a corner lot. So would that mean that instead of the fence coming and making a 90-degree turn, that the fence would have to make a 45? It kind of just cuts the corner off at the turn?
That is correct, and
That's
that
right.
is what is shown in the revised site plan as well. That was also a stipulation per the city engineer.
Okay. Any questions for staff?
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. and Ms. Thompson, if you could come back up, please. So you just heard staff talk about the fact that they support it, and there's these 2 conditions. The first one means that you have to build it the way the site plan says. And then that's what I just kind of wanted more clarification on. The second one is, what would that really look like? Does it in fact just mean that that corner's cut off at a 45 instead of a 90?
Right.
So having heard that, do you understand both of those conditions and
Yes.
and agree to both of those?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. I'd ask that you, if you're here to speak on behalf of item 3C, which is V20-019, I'd ask that you step forward at this time. Seeing no one, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve public hearing variance request V20-019, allow 5-foot fence in front yard on a corner lot, land lot 451, 930 Eleanor Way, Brian and Cindy Thompson.
Second.
We have a motion to approve item 3C that's been seconded. If there's no further, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Which is the first of 2 separate variance requests for the same piece of property. So 3D is a variance request V20-008 to allow encroachment into the 50-foot undisturbed stream buffer, land lot 594, 1554 Spring Street, with the applicant as the City of Smyrna. I understand that our Parks Director, if you could please state your name for the record.
Richard Garland.
Richard Garland is here on behalf of the city. If you could just either you explain the project, or if you've got
We've actually engaged
professional
the
staff.
services of a landscape architect, and I'd like for Jeff to do that. So I'd like to bring up Jeff Smith with Foley Design to explain the process with you.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Jeff Smith with Foley Design. Sorry. What we're proposing in Durham Park on the corner of Spring Street and Anderson is a new entrance into the park. Currently, there's an existing path that comes down, that's got an elevation change that comes down from Spring Street that a lot of folks are using. I've been out there a few times. I've seen people actually pushing their strollers down a hillbank side, and it gets very slippery. It's got a lot of wear to it. What we're proposing is a trailhead kind of entrance like you have on the south side of the park. Kind of match up with materials and also create a place to pull off from the sidewalk and sit down. As we do this, we're going to have to impact part of the stream buffers. We have a 75-foot stream buffer, which is your impervious that's in place by the city, and also a 50-foot stream buffer, which is also part of a city buffer setback. The current situation out there inside, there is no buffers available. It's kind of all grass that's being mowed. So what we're proposing is, since we're going to impact it, we're going to come back and actually make a real stream buffer by going through mitigation. So our goal is to create a safer entranceway and exit into and out of the park from Spring Street for all the residents to the north. They currently have to come down Anderson, go farther down, cross a bridge, get across to the side where there's some walking trails. So we're trying to make it more convenient for the neighborhood, make it something that's more interesting, create more of a trailhead entrance, and give it kind of a more of a feel, more of a sense of place for the park.
And I would like to add that this project has been in discussion for about 2 years. It was approved as a CIP project in the FY 2020 budget of the city, and we're just at the point where we're through the planning phases and beginning to pull those construction documents together and prepare to bid it out, and this has to be done as part of that.
Thank you. Any questions this time for the applicant? Okay, I will call up staff. Ms. Crowe, if you could, please come give us a background.
All right, again, Caitlin Crowe, Planner 1, Community Development. So this does consist of 2 different variances, so with permission, I'm going to go ahead and combine those and talk about it all at once. So the first variance is V20-008 to allow encroachment into the city's 50-foot undisturbed buffer. And the second variance is V20-009 to allow encroachment into the city's 75-foot impervious surface setback. So this subject property is located at the intersection of Spring Street, Anderson Circle, and Bernard Way. So it has 3 different frontages and is currently occupied by Durham Park, which is a city park. The applicant is proposing to build the formal entrance from Spring Street into Durham Park since there's currently erosion issues going on the hillside from an informal path that people have been using to get into the park. So the new entrance will consist of hardscape steps made of Tennessee stone and field stone, as well as some landscaping to make it look nicer in the entrance. The new entrance will tie into the existing trail system in the park, so it will connect to it. So this has been properly posted. There were no site distance issues. We did get a citizen email and some concerns over whether the entrance was necessary, but no further comments were brought forth at this time. After reviewing the variance application, staff does support the request and recommends approval to allow encroachment into the city's 50-foot undisturbed buffer, as well as the 75-foot impervious surface setback with the following conditions. The first, prior to building permit issuance, a buffer mitigation plan will be submitted and approved by the city engineer. Number 2, the applicant shall meet all ADA access requirements deemed necessary by the fire marshal during construction plan review. And with that, I can answer any questions.
So, Ms. Crowe, the first condition, I just want to kind of highlight this, get it on the record. That condition, I'm assuming, came from our city engineer, so the city has our own
Correct.
civil engineer.
Yeah, that was per request.
So this, as the applicant mentioned, the applicant's representative mentioned in their opening statement, was the fact that in their opinion, when it's done, it's going to be more of an actual buffer and be, improved. This will be an improvement for both, right? So I know that our city engineer with that comment, that's the way that we as a city ensure that statement becomes true after it's built.
Correct.
Right? It has to meet the standards of these things that civil engineers know about, right?
Correct, because currently on the plan that was submitted, it says that there will be a buffer mitigation, and you're absolutely correct. This is the city's way of ensuring that we do get that buffer mitigation.
And the second one is the fire department making things difficult on everybody again, right?
Yeah, typical.
I'm joking. Okay, does anybody have any questions at this time for staff? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crowe. This is a public hearing. If there's anybody here that would like to speak on behalf of V20-008, I'd ask that you'd step forward at this time. Sure. Please step forward, and if you would, just for the record, state your name.
My name is Fred Crinson. I live on 1578 Spring Street, about 4 houses away from this.
Good morning.
This proposed stairway, I thought is something that's desirable, but I did want to ask a couple of questions, maybe of you. The current impervious surface that's there now is already within the backup area, correct? The impervious surface? The sidewalk through the park is in the impervious setback zone?
For the stream buffer, yes,
Right.
correct. Yeah.
Right, so we're adding to that. The other thing I would just like to point out is that hill is used by the lawn maintenance people to get into that area of the park to mow it. And there needs to be, they have a pretty big machine, you've seen it, that's about 6 feet wide, that goes right down that hill. And the stairs have to leave that, wherever the stairs are. I'm surprised there's not a drawing, maybe there is somewhere. They need to leave that access way, because
Yeah.
those guys basically tear that hill up when they drive
Well,
up and
I
down
mean,
it.
I don't want to speak for the Parks Director, he's here, but I can assure you that that property will continue to be maintained however they access it. Would that be correct?
Yeah, well, they'll do it whether you want them to or not, that's the point.
Yeah.
And I guess the ADA access, is that gonna be a ramp? I mean, that's why it'd be interesting to see.
I
a
believe,
drawing.
it's my understanding that, and we do have site plans and documents available to us. It's just, we're probably just not projected right now, but it's my understanding, and Ms. Crow, correct me if I get this wrong, but it's primarily ADA accessible parking that's in a location that would make existing sidewalks or ramps usable if they were just to be able to park here. So street parking, is that correct? You want to come back up to the podium, I'm sorry, so we can get your comments on the record.
That is correct, and we did make it open to say that anything during construction plan review would be reviewed by the fire marshal, so that if anything else came up during that, we could address it at that time as well. But currently, it's just for the ADA parking.
So there's gonna be parking spaces on Spring Street?
One,
Not on
No,
Spring
no.
Street.
Anderson
Yeah, it'll
Circle.
be on Anderson Circle where
Right.
the existing parking is. It'll be converted into ADA.
Yeah, one of that street side existing space will be designated as ADA. Richard, if you would like to.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the area where we're proposing to put this hardscape entrance, to make that entrance handicap accessible would mean going into the 25-foot stream buffer, which we
Yeah.
cannot do.
Right.
So there won't be a ramp from that point. Yeah, just because of how wide we'd have to go to be able to accommodate that. So we can't do that there. In discussing this with the fire marshal, from an ADA compliance standpoint, while we can make an accommodation for adding a parking space, there are additional issues throughout the park that we can't address at this time. It's not within the scope of this project, but we're aware that there are issues within the park. So what we're going to try to do is, of the parallel parking spaces that are currently on Anderson, convert one of those spaces, or at least have a plan to be able to convert one of those spaces to a handicap accessible parking area that would give the ramps to be able to allow people from the street to get into the park on the existing sidewalks. And it may mean reworking some of those sidewalks, but we'll show that on the plan. It will not be part of what we're doing with this project. It will have to be something that will come back and get done. But we're, at least from the fire marshal's perspective, showing it as we understand that it needs to be done, and we'll get to it as we can get the funding to do so.
So this variance does not include that parking space?
That's correct.
You could please state your name for the record.
Phil King. I live on Anderson Circle as well. Just a question, whether or not the project will impact any of the nice big old trees at that end of the park?
I'll answer that for you. We actually designed the reason why we're having to go for an impact into the 50-foot buffers, because we're trying to stay away from a gigantic oak that's out there. So we're actually going around and staying out of the critical root zones to make sure we don't impact the tree.
Yeah, that one large tree specifically, right? And
Yeah,
you're staying outside of the drip.
Typically, they'll give you
area.
20% impact, but I'm trying to stay completely out of it, especially with an older tree. So definitely.
Okay. Anybody else? Same request, please, sir, if you could state your name for the record.
Certainly. My name's Joe Thomas. I live at 1518 Spring Street, the house immediately in front of where these stairs will be built. I'm highly supportive of this project. Every day when I sit on my porch, I see those baby strollers. I see kids on bikes. Not that the stairs would be any easier to ride down than the slope, but nonetheless, and of course after every rain, the erosion from that slope covers the circular concrete path. So once a week I'm out there with a flat shovel, kind of cleaning that up so people can ride the young people can ride their bike around
We
it.
appreciate that.
Hey.
Yeah.
It's a great park, and I think
is.
this will make it better.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your comments, and I agree. I think that as proposed, this is going to be a significant improvement to what's there right now. Anybody have any questions for either staff or the applicant? Assuming that there's no one else here for public comment, that appears to be true. So seeing no other additional public comment and barring any further conversation, I will request a motion.
Make a motion to approve 2020-96, public hearing variance request V20-008, allow encroachment into the 50-foot undisturbed stream buffer, land lot 594-1554 Spring Street, City of Smyrna applicant.
I second.
We have a motion approved that's been properly seconded. If there's no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. Motion passes unanimously. Item 3 with a different variance request V20-009 to allow encroachment into the 75-foot impervious surface setback, land lot 594-1554 Spring Street with the City of Smyrna as the applicant. For the applicant, do you have any additional things to add? Staff, same question. Any additional information to add? Same to conditions carry over on this one as well? Okay. Does anybody have any questions for staff or the applicant? This is a public hearing. If you're here to speak on behalf of V20-009, I'd ask that you step forward at this time. Gentlemen, did we sufficiently answer any questions? Or okay, thank you. So seeing no additional need for public comment, I will call for a motion.
Second.
I have a motion that's been properly seconded. If there's no further discussion, I'll call for a vote. Unanimously. Last item on the agenda is item 4A, the meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those?
Make a motion to approve 2020-122, approval of the February 26, 2020 License and Variance Board meeting minutes.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the minutes that's been seconded. Motion passes unanimously. I'll adjourn.
Where are they posted? How would you find them?
I got a letter, but I'll live right on.